Hey guys, it's time to get back into the top middle and high school books that I learned about from the training that I recently attended. This is part 2. The part 1 video will be linked in the space below, as well as a document that lists over 250 books that we learned about from this training. We're just going to jump right back in, and we're going to round out the romance section with The Love Match by Priyanka Taslim. This is a book that you may have seen in a haul of mine, I think from the summers when I picked it up. This is about Zara, who is, her family's from Bangladesh, but they're here in the United States in New Jersey. And Zara wants to just spend the summer working at this tea shop, earning money for her college writing classes. There's a boy there who just really vibes with her. His name is Naeem, and they really get each other, and so she's like super excited. But her mom has other ideas in mind. Her mom is wanting to set her up with a boyfriend slash potential husband, because their culture does arranged marriages kind of thing. And the guy that she gets set up with is Haroon, who is rich and handsome, but like very aloof and just not like not into like being social and all that stuff. So it's kind of like an Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy situation where they meet each other and they're like, I'm not impressed. And in fact, I think there's a little bit of Jane Austen inspiration at work, because I saw it in the blurb that it mentions the mom wants her to have a Jane Austen-like romance. Anyway, so Haroon, the rich guy, and Zara are going to, like, I think fake date to, like, try to sabotage their parents' plans, because neither one of them wants to be part of this setup, and I guess the story goes from there. Fantasy slash science fiction. The first one is a science fiction book, or she called it that anyway. It's The Super Teacher Project by Gordon Corman. If you have middle schoolers in your life, Gordon Corman, it should be an author that you're looking for when recommending books. So he is a phenomenal writer. As an adult, I enjoy his books for middle grade very, very much. And my students just love his work. So this one is about Oliver, who is a middle school prankster kind of kid. And there is a new homeroom teacher called Mr. Adact who catches Oliver anytime that he's trying to plan or pull up a prank. He's just way too good at it, and he's also like got a super great memory, especially for trivia and song lyrics kind of stuff. And he starts coaching the girls field hockey team, and all of a sudden he knows everything about field hockey, and he doesn't mind when other teachers say, will you do my lunch duty, that kind of stuff. And so he's becoming this like super teacher or popular teacher at the school. And Oliver feels like something's up. There's something not quite right with Mr. Adact, and he and his best friend are going to try to figure out, is he even human or is he some kind of robot? The next book is one that has a super cute book trailer, so I would encourage you to look it up when you're done watching this video. It is Nick Blake and the Remarkables by Angie Thomas. It is about a young girl named Nick. Angie Thomas named this character after Nick Stone, the writer, who's their like writer besties. Anyway, Nick is 12, I believe, and her father has been accused of a crime that Nick is certain he did not commit, and she has to team up with her friends to track down a magical object that will enable her to save her father. There is a high amount of magic in this book, and it is going to be a series. So Nick Blake and the Remarkables is technically the series name, and then the Manifest or Prophecy is the title of the first book. The next book also has some magic in it. This is Once There Was by Kiash Monsef. Full disclosure, I read this one and I didn't love it, but I've heard lots of people just really, really enjoyed it. So try it for yourself if it sounds interesting. We have Marjan, our main character, who after her father's passing is struggling to keep his veterinary practice afloat, and she learns that not only did he treat regular animals, but also he was a veterinarian to mythical creatures like griffins and stuff. And she is expected by the magical creature community to take over her father's place in caring for these magical creatures. Our next section is graphic novels, even though we've already talked about quite a few in this series so far, but there were some that she had that was just a graphic novel dedicated section. So the first one is School Trip by Jerry Craft. It is the third book in this series I feel like this is a series you could read separately or at least out of order, but you probably just want to go in order to be to stay with the characters the best. We start with New Kid that won the Newbery Award. Then we have Class Act, and then in this third one, School Trip, Jordan and his friends are going on a trip to France, and they are going to all be like the new kids because they're kids coming from a different place into this new country, and I'm sure that there will be some fun adventures. The next one is Captain America: The Ghost Army by Alan Gratz. Alan Gratz is known for his historical fiction, specifically World War II, although he has done other time periods. But this is like the perfect graphic novel for him, making his graphic novel debut. This is, as I said, about Captain America and also his sidekick Bucky Barnes, and they are in World War II fighting against the Nazis with the help of the Ghost Army, which was a real thing the Allies had, full of artists and different people, sound engineers and stuff, that they would use fake things like inflatable tanks and great big speakers and stuff to try to trick the Nazis into thinking there were a lot more Allied troops than there were. But in this graphic novel, there's that Ghost Army, plus the Nazis have their own Ghost Army, but they're the kind of ghosts that are like unkillable because they've already died. They're actual ghosts, or kind of zombie-ish things the way they present in this book. But that one was a quick read. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, there we go. The next one is the Ojawoja. This is kind of an odd one. The illustrations are very dark and moody, so if that's kind of your vibe, this would be a good one to pick up. It is a middle grade graphic novel, 2 misfit girls, one LGBT plus girl, and then another girl who has autism, and they're kind of friends who are friends because they're the misfits. There is this mythical creature that's said to live in the forest called the Ojawoja, and they want to do a project on the history of the folklore of it, like research how long has it been claimed to be around and that kind of thing. And then something strange starts to happen. A lot of people, teachers, students, etc. in their school are starting to act really mean and nasty, like the mean girl at their school. She's kind of the Regina George of that school, and they're all starting to act a lot like her. Could that and the Ojawoja be related in some way? These girls are about to find out. The next graphic novel is actually targeted towards maybe even elementary age kids, but I went ahead and got it for my middle schoolers because of the art. It is phenomenal. The book is Beowulf, and this is by Zach Weinersmith, and it is a modern retelling of the classic tale of Beowulf. But in this one, it's centered around kids who have this tree house called Tree Heart, and they spend all their time there. They hoard their candy, they have sleepovers and parties, and it's where they're able to be kids. But unfortunately, this treehouse is taken over by a mean, nasty adult, and the kids have got to band together with some other groups of kids, including the legendary warrior Beowulf, to get back their treehouse. We have a couple of horror titles. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. You've probably heard about this book already before. This is about Charity, who works at a interesting summer camp. This one, you pay to go stay the weekend, and the actors or cast members, etc., they act out scenes from a classic slasher film, The Curse of Camp Mirror Lake. And Charity plays the final girl, the girl who's left alive. But on the last weekend of the season, some of her coworkers are going missing and one ends up dead. So she and her friend have to figure out, how did that person end up dead? Is there a killer on the loose? What's going on, and can they stop it? The other horror one I kept because I knew that my middle schoolers would go for the cover. It is Scare Waves by Trevor Henderson. This is set in a small town, another one of these where we have strange creatures rumored to live in the woods, but people have also gone missing a lot there, so people just don't go out after dark, especially alone. And not very many people will talk about what's going on except for this radio host, and a group of kids are like, okay, let's take the information we get from the radio guy and do our own investigation and see if we can find out if the creatures are real. Hopefully they won't get eaten alive. Nonfiction graphic novels. Sunshine. This is by Jarrett L. I'm going to see if I can say this name right. Krosuk. I can't say it right. You can just look at it here. This is based on something that happened to him when he was a young man. He was chosen kind of randomly to go work as a volunteer camp counselor at a place called Camp Sunshine, which is a place for kids who have terminal illnesses. And it changed his life. He talked about how it wasn't depressing being around these kids. It was amazing because they weren't just kids who were dying. They were kids who were like living despite having these terminal illnesses. Another nonfiction, or at least I guess based on a true story, I would say, graphic novel is Four Eyes by Rex Ogle. This is the story of a 6th grader who learns he has to have glasses and he thinks it's the end of the world, and what's going to happen with that situation. There is going to be friendship issues, all that good stuff, and it seems like it would be a good one to give to a kid who's maybe getting glasses, maybe a little bit worried about what that's going to be like. We have one Holocaust book. This is Artifice by Sharon Cameron, and I am not very patiently awaiting for my copy to arrive so I can read it. This is by the same author that wrote Bluebird, and she's written a couple of other books that were really, really good as well. This one is about Isa, who's living in Amsterdam, and her family owns an art gallery, and life is pretty good. And then the Nazis show up and take over. And life is not good anymore because the Nazis started buying up or stealing tons of art from all across Europe, and her family's art gallery ends up basically being emptied out. Well, now has come the time to pay taxes to keep their business open, and they can't because they have no art left to sell. And there is going to be an art auction, and Isa has an idea to make the Nazis pay. She's going to take this painting that her father did. It's a copy of a Rembrandt, but her father's quite good. So technically it would be a forgery if she sold it as a Rembrandt. But she's going to take it to the auction and sell it to freaking Hitler himself. On the way to the auction, Isa learns about an organization that is rescuing Jewish babies that are within the city of Amsterdam and getting them out to safety. Isa wants to help, and she knows that they need money to continue to do their work, and she's got an idea of how to make more money for the organization. I just love the idea that the Nazis could have been paying to save Jewish children. Yes, please. So our presenter was really into chess books this year. She talked about 3. I'm just going to share one of them with you. I have read it and really, really enjoyed it. It is Not an Easy Win by Crystal D. Giles. This is about Lawrence, who gets suspended from school and isn't allowed to come back for the rest of the semester. He has to do it online. It was for fighting why he got suspended, and he's got some anger issues. His dad's in prison. He and mom and siblings live with grandma in a teeny tiny house, very little money, and grandma says, you're not just gonna sit around, you're gonna get a job. So he gets a job at the local community center, and during the daytime it's slower there and stuff because, you know, kids are in school. So he's able to do his online classwork. And he starts to learn chess. And in the afternoons, when the kids get out from school, more kids come that like to play chess, and he starts to compete against them and maybe even try to get a spot at an upcoming chess competition. This is going to help him with his anger issues because chess is a game where you have to think moves ahead. What's going to happen if I do this? And that helps him apply that to his life and go, oh, I can't just start throwing punches every time that I get upset. I've got to think ahead about the consequences. Up next, we have the mystery section. Our first book is Liar's Beach by Katie Catugno. She usually writes for a little bit older audience, but this is for middle grade / high school. This one is about Michael Linden, or Linden as he goes by. He goes to a fancy private school, and his roommate there, Jasper, I think is his name, invites him to come to their summer home on Martha's Vineyard. And Linden learns really quickly that Jasper and his siblings and everybody at that home are liars. Well, one day, someone ends up unconscious in the pool. And immediately everybody's like, oh, it was an accident. Well, Jasper already knows that everyone's lying. He's even got a secret himself that he's trying to keep from these people. So is he a liar too? I don't know. And he runs into Holiday Proctor, who's his childhood friend. And she kind of asks him what's going on and goes, I wonder if that was an attempted murder, or maybe there is a killer on the island. We must solve the mystery. Up next is It Found Us by Lindsay Curry. Lindsay Curry is great at middle grade creepy. This is about 12-year-old Hazel, who she and her friends are playing hide and seek in a creepy cemetery, and someone goes missing. And Hazel has to figure out where this kid was taken and Are they okay? Is there something paranormal involved or not? Carry My Secret to Your Grave is number 2 in the Murder, She Wrote series by Stephanie Keene. This is about Bea Fletcher, who is the great-grandniece of Jessica Fletcher from the TV show Murder, She Wrote. So we have Jessica Fletcher as like a fictionalized book character, great aunt in this series, and Bea is a teenage sleuth. And in this one, she is at a lake, Lake Paloma, and she learns that a girl named Eden drowned there last summer, and she starts to ask questions and learns that maybe Eden's drowning wasn't accidental. And she's going to end up putting a target on her back by asking all these questions, because if the person responsible for Eden's drowning finds out, then she could be the next target. The next mystery book we have is the Windy Bee Puzzle. I'm actually listening to the audiobook of this right now. I'm about 70% through and I'm really enjoying it, although it is sad, and you will understand why. So this is part nonfiction, part fiction. Lois Lowry, the author who wrote The Giver and all kinds of amazing books, she learned about this body that was found in a peat bog in northern Germany in the 1950s. And originally they believed it was a girl, and then later on modern testing said, no, it's a boy. And so it was interesting because it was a young body and there was like a blindfold on their eyes. So Lois Lowry tells us in the nonfiction part, she tells us about the factual stuff about this body that was found and how intrigued she was and wanted to create a story for whoever this person was. And then we have 2 fictional parts. One is imagining that this body was a girl, a young girl named Estreld, who lived during the Iron Age, because that's when this body was dated to. And she was the first female who wanted to become a warrior in her tribe. Or her village. I don't know if it's tribe is the right word. But anyway, Celtic tribe, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, the other story that she imagines is it being a young man, Varric, and he is a friend of Estrel's, and he's kind of crippled. He has a twisted back and stuff, but he helps her train. And he is also seen as an outcast because he's different. He's got this disability. So it's sad because you know that whichever kid it is, their stories are leading to like being buried in this peat bog. Like, not good. But at the same time, the stories are so compelling, and as Lois Lowry, and she's taking us on this journey, like, it's well worth the read or the listen. Up next is The Umbrella House. This is a middle grade about a girl named Roxy, I believe is her name. Again, my notes cut off because remember from last time I showed you how the notes are cut off of the part of the words here. Anyway, she wants to be a reporter, and she watches her favorite news channel, and she and her best friend have their YouTube series where they create news stories about their neighborhood of the East Village in Manhattan. And she hears that her favorite news channel is going to be hosting a youth news competition, and you have to make a video and submit it. And so she is looking for a story, and she finds out that there is a rich real estate developer who wants to buy her historic apartment building and probably tear it down and do bad things. So she's going to use that as her story, creating a story about her building and the people in it. Thin Air by Kelly M. Parker. This is one that our presenters told us was middle grade or high school. I strongly feel like it should only be for high school. This is about 12 prep school students, 2 from 6 different schools, 2 each from each school. They're chosen to fly to Paris and compete for this scholarship. And they're on this private plane, and they're on the way there, and then they're told that they have to start competing on the plane. And one of the things that happens is the secrets start being revealed about each one of them, and they're like devastating secrets. One girl is outed as having multiple abortions, and she takes her own life. There's a lot of blood, multiple dead bodies on this trip, just a lot of intense stuff, and I don't think that I want my middle schoolers to read it, so I'm going to ship my copy over to the high school. Having said that, I really, really enjoyed the story. As an adult, as reading this story, I really enjoyed it. But keep in mind that it's just my opinion, I suggest it for high school only. The Lost Library by Rebecca Stead and Wendy Mass. These are both award-winning authors. They're phenomenal, and they have written together this book about a little free library that suddenly appears overnight in this small town, and our main character, Evan, gets 2 weathered old books from the little free library, and he finds out that there's a mystery connected to one of these books that none of the adults in town will talk about. So he's going to launch an investigation to figure out what is going on with these books, the event from the past, and the little free library. We are down to 2 more books. So this last category she titled Climate Change. The first book is Dust by Dusty Bowling, and anything by Dusty Bowling is great. This one I'm excited to read eventually. Evelyn is our main character. When she was very young, she nearly died from an asthma attack, and it's now 10 years later. Her family has moved to Arizona, and she's just like, she's been there for a long time, and she's loving it, the dry climate, etc. Well, this new kid, Adam, shows up to school, and immediately he's a target for the bullies, just like she and her friends are. So they try to like bring him into their friend group and that kind of thing. But she's noticing that the same time that Adam showed up to town, so did these dust storms. And when Adam is more upset, the dust storms get worse. She's also wondering if there's some kind of connection there, and if home is maybe not a safe place for Adam, because at the end of the school day, these great big black clouds of dust come rolling to town, and ooh. So she's got to do something about the dust storms because they're making it very, very difficult for her to breathe, and also something to help her friend. Last book is The Big Tree by Brian Selznick. This is going to be another typical Brian Selznick book, chock full of illustrations. This is a book about 2 little seeds and their journey through life. I believe it starts in the Jurassic era because he has dinosaurs in it. And they're sycamore seeds, Louise and Merwin. And their mama tree like dies before it should or something, and they have to use their wits and imagination to make their way through the dangerous world. If you haven't read a Brian Selznick book before, know that going into it, the pictures are just as important as the words. They help tell the story. He's written things like the invention of Hugo Cabret and the Marvels, and what's the other one? Wonder something. Anyway, lots and lots of pictures, but they're chunky books. So if you pick it up and read it, you can impress your friends and family and be like, look, I read this giant book here. They don't need to know that it's mostly pictures. All right. And that brings us to the end. As I said, we learned about tons and tons more books than the ones that I chose to share with you, but I couldn't spend forever and ever going through all of them. So those are just the few that I chose. And again, you can find part 1 linked below, as well as a Google spreadsheet that has all the books and authors, as well as whether they are middle grade or high school and whether I have read them. So look for that in the space below, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful, magical, and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.